Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. So guys, today I actually have a special guest, Today with me, guys, I don't want to make it a bit long, but today I have Paul with me, right? Paul, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Slightly cold here in Joburg, but otherwise in good spirits.
Yeah, yeah, and one thing about the weather is we can't actually control it, Um, but yeah, just not to make it a bit a long introduction. Paul, could you please tell us more about who Paul is, right? Who is Paul basically? Could you please introduce yourself to us?
Yes, certainly. So I run a company called Congruence Training. We've been in business for 29 years. I've
Perfect.
also become an author. I'm the author of 3 books. 2 of them are business books.
Okay.
They focus on really public speaking. So the one is on presentation skills. It's called You Can Present with Confidence. And the other one is called The Exceptional Speaker, and that is on public speaking. So we do quite a lot of presentation skills training. We do it public and in-house, but we also offer other training around the communication and management and leadership field. And I work in the business Congruence Training with my wife Trudy.
Okay. And so how did you actually first of all, let's start with how did you actually get in the public speaking and authoring space?
Well, I guess like many people, probably by accident. So my background was that there were no funds available to put me through university. So I kind of went through the University of Life, and I'm originally from Cape Town. Decided to come up to Johannesburg at the age of 23 to see if I could seek my fortune. Initially the plan was in TV and radio and that sort of thing, and I did a little bit of work there, but not too much. And then I was an extra on a shoot, and there was a branch manager of a life insurance company, and he recruited me at the age of 24, and they were horrified because the stats told them that a 24-year-old wasn't supposed to succeed in life insurance. But in my second month, I was the 5th best in the region, so they realized that I could sell, and sell at least. And by the age of 29, I became a branch manager. And interestingly, it was in the life insurance space that I was exposed to adult training, specifically sales training initially. And I also had access to 1 or 2 motivational tapes. I saw guys like Anthony Compola getting up and saying, "It's Friday, but Sunday's coming." And this kind of motivated me. And I thought, well, what if I could do that kind of thing?
Okay.
And I attended my first presentation skills course actually in 1992. And I was told by the facilitator then that this was something that I was pretty much a natural at. So that gave me a bit of encouragement, if you like, because as one of the youngest branch managers, I used to feel very nervous speaking in front of my peers. And I realized that this was a skill that people needed to learn, and that we aren't born with presentation skills. We aren't born knowing how to speak, and we don't simply come into life. I mean, there's some of us, maybe 1%, that have got this natural confidence that they can speak to anyone. But it was a kind of a training course that resonated with me. And 7 years after being on my first presentation skills course, this was many years after I'd started my own training company.
Okay.
We delivered our first presentation skills course. So we've been doing that now for 25 years, and we kind of haven't looked back. And it's interesting that when I have to pitch my course against competition, the fact that I have a book. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. Yeah, here we go. I've got a nice book with a lion on it. Says present with confidence. It kind of gives me that credibility edge that being an author does when you've got into it in some kind of depth. Okay. So that's how I got into it. That's the short version.
Okay. That's to be honest with you, that is really amazing. That is really amazing. For the years that you've been in the industry, and the fact that even right now you're still in the industry, and you know, that's really amazing. And also, just to try and get into the part where you're actually saying that when you have to present your course to people, it you have that advantage because you have a book. There was this interview that I did. We actually, I think it's episode 9. Um, there is a guy there also. He is in the authoring space. He was mentioning the same thing, that um him having books has opened doors for him that he never thought could be opened. And he has a book which says that your I think your book is, no, or your what's it saying? I forgot the name. But basically the book is talking about the fact that having a book, right, is more better than a business card, right?
Well,
Just
absolutely. I
yeah.
agree with that. I would agree with that completely because what you write about essentially is what you become known about. It becomes really your stamp of authority. Just remember that the word author stands for authority on a subject. So what tends to happen is that once you write about something and you blog about it and you post about it on LinkedIn or what have you, you become the go-to person for that particular discipline. And frankly, if I was looking for people to train my managers or my salespeople or whoever on
Yeah.
presentation skills, I'd like to feel that they didn't just put a facilitator, that I'm being trained by the expert. I'd like to be able
Yeah.
to feel that it's somebody that really knows their stuff. And when you look at presenting, what's quite unique about this kind of training is that we don't just lecture to them for 2 days. We put them in a classroom, we give people some theory, we limit the size of the class, and then they have to prepare and deliver a presentation while I film them with a 4K video camera or a camcorder.
Yeah.
And then we take that footage, we play it back to the entire class, and each person is able to comment on what they saw. And it's quite an eye opener for people seeing themselves presenting for the first time. It freaks them out a bit. And the other interesting thing is when you hear your voice being played back, you've only previously heard your voice in your own head. So it sounds different being played back through some speakers. And people they say, well, is that what I sound like? And say, yeah, that is. And they say, but it sounds terrible. And I say, well, actually, it's not terrible. It's fine. Everyone else is used to it. You're just used to hearing your voice in your own head. So we
Yeah.
tend to find that the manner in which the feedback is facilitated is a crucial part of the training because it allows people to understand themselves a little bit better. It allows them to see the things that they're doing that are good and that need to be improved on. We don't like to use the word bad because the good things are the building blocks. And then we give them methods of rehearsal that allows them to get feedback so that they can improve. And you generally see that there is a dramatic improvement for those that go out and deliver presentations after the course. So you can imagine it's a very motivating kind of experience. People ask me, uh, don't you get tired of delivering the same presentation skills course all the time? My answer is very simple. Every time I have a different group of people, every time that experience is different to those people, they
Yeah.
get put under pressure to prepare a presentation in 45 minutes and then deliver it. And then they do that again the second day, except they get a little bit longer the second day because we add visuals in. And there's a certain amount of tension in that makes the course very compelling. And we also find that because it's such interesting stuff and it's pertinent to our own confidence, we manage to keep people's attention right throughout. When we hit lunchtime, they say, "I can't believe it! Is it lunchtime already?" So that's kind of the vibe that we get going.
Yeah. And now, um after you've shared that, I'm just a bit I'm a bit curious, right? Um in terms of or let me just simply say this. Um can you share a key milestone in that has basically happened in your career?
In my particular career, okay, so
Yes.
uh, in 1999, they created the Sector Education Training Authority, and there were various, it's called CETAs.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I had a training company, and everyone stopped doing training because they got into a wait and see, very much like before these last elections. So
Okay.
I had to do something to generate some revenue. So I started running public seminars where we'd invite people for a breakfast, and they'd pay a few $100 and we'd give them breakfast, and we'd give them a whatever it was in the box at the time. We eventually refined it to being a video and a notepad and a pen and a few pocket cards and things like that. But they'd come and listen to a kind of a power session for about 2.5, 3 hours, and then they go home. And that got me into public speaking. So I was part of an initial meeting with Steph Du Plessis, and we started the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. We called it Southern Africa because we found that a lot of our neighboring countries didn't have enough speakers to really start their own association. So we would welcome any speaker that wanted to come in from Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, any of those areas, Lesotho, Swaziland. And that association is still going today. And we started attending overseas speakers conventions and discovered a designation called the Certified Speaking Professional that is only conferred from the United States, which is the NSA, National Speakers Association, and the Australian Speakers Association, which is called the PSAA, Professional Speakers Association of Australia. Okay. Anyway, I became if you're asking about a milestone, it was a long way around, but I became Africa's first certified speaking professional this century. And we'd only had one other person in the previous century, and that was Anton van der Post in 1984. So effectively the second ever South African CSP. And I've kind of taken on the role of helping other speakers to get their CSP. And we now have over a dozen in South Africa. We just had a new one who's about to be conferred in the States this year, a chap called Joey Evans, who completed the Dakar rally a few years after he was paralyzed on a motorbike. So you can understand how amazing his talks are. And he's our most recent CSP for 2024.
That's amazing, actually. I don't know if I did mention, but on this podcast, we've actually had about three people that are a member of the it's PSASA, right?
That's right, PSASA.
Yeah, we had Ian Hatton.
We
had Tim Wagner,
yes.
and then we also had but is in the Cape Town side. It's Kyle, right? So
Kyle Junchies.
Yes.
Okay, so I know all of them, and they're all fabulous people.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of shout out now that I think the next person that you have from the PSASA needs to be a woman, because those are all men so far.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a few tips of people that you can interview on your podcast that are really amazing female speakers from Cape Town and from all around the country.
Okay, that would be amazing. Actually, that would be amazing. And yeah, as I was actually saying, we've had those three people so far, and what you guys actually came up with, right? I'm also seeing the value that it's actually bringing out there, because I got invited by Marie to one of the there's a it was what you call it. I think it's a monthly thing that normally happens.
It's a chapter meeting.
Yes, a chapter meeting.
So you're talking about Marie Leroux.
Yes.
Right.
So I was invited to that, and to be honest, it was really, really amazing, So I just wanted to actually say that it was really amazing. So I'm one of the people that will have to say to you, thank you guys for the initiative that you guys took to make sure that you got PSASA to where it is at this moment,
No, you're welcome. And what's quite amazing is that we've got into a situation where a lot of our women speakers are taking up leadership roles and doing amazingly well, and taking the PSASA to an online level that we had not really seen before. We've got some really amazing people coming through the ranks, and it's been the support of being part of PSASA that's really helped them, because speaking can be quite a lonely business if you're a professional speaker, and having that support. People often say to us, well, why would you join a speakers association? Because you're mingling now with your competition. But the point is, we don't speak on the same topics. We speak on all kinds of different topics. So we're sharing the tools of running a speaking business with one another and helping one another's businesses to succeed. And if I get an invitation to go and speak somewhere, and it's not my area of expertise, I now know so many speakers, so I can recommend who would be the right person for that particular topic if it's not me.
Okay. And which is amazing, because as you have mentioned that the speaking business, it's a very lonely business, and also even the entrepreneurship space, it is a very, very lonely journey for a person to actually take without the right, without the support, and knowing that there are people that are seeing that and taking initiative to try and make sure that they bring those speakers together, and they build a community around that of like-minded people. That is something that is really amazing, because it simply says that those people, they care about the people that they are around with, right? And as you've mentioned, at the very same time, what happens is that you get to share ideas. You get to share how you guys can run the business and all of that, which is something that is good at the end of the day, so I have to shout out you guys to that. It's really
Thank you.
amazing.
And I must just mention this to you, that up until the mid 70s, there wasn't anything like a speaker business. When the first speakers started in the States, started offering their services, they didn't even know what to charge. So they were charging, $200 and $300 for a talk. And now it's become a lot more respected, especially in the developed countries. We're still trying to educate South Africans that if you want a really good speaker, it's no use offering them $5,000, because they might turn around and say, oh, but it's only for an hour. Oh, it's only for half an hour. But what they're actually buying is your 20 years of experience and the days that you spend putting that talk together so that it's fantastic. And the time, if you have slides and that you spend putting that together so that when the show happens, it actually makes your conference. So we need to really, in South Africa, start educating people that they should pay speakers properly for the amazing service that they're offering, because we have some really incredible speakers in this country.
True. That's true. That's true. And I don't know if you are aware. I'm pretty sure you are aware of Vositembegwai. He also said the very same thing that you are saying right now, which is that uh, a- and a lot of times it's not a matter of the price, right? It's just a matter of being able to it's a matter of you being able to let the people, the person that is hiring you, know more about the value that you are bringing to the table, which is something that I believe that you guys do in the community that you guys have.
Well, very much so. I think that what they want you to do is to land a particular message, and if you can change a few people's perspective, and most importantly, give them hope about something, then you've really done your job. What I'd like to feel when I'm finished is that I've touched most people in some way or another, and given them at least one idea, preferably more than that, but at least one idea surrounding the central message that they can implement and do something with. And you in a sense, need to ask yourself, when you're going to do a speech, what are you actually after? Are you simply imparting information? Are you wanting people to change their minds? Are you wanting people to buy something? Are you wanting people to redirect their thoughts? What is it that you want? And if you've got a clear idea of what the objective is of your speech, and you can provide real value in terms of the spec that you've been given, well, then you've done your job. But it's no use just dumping content. You need to have energy, you need to be enthusiastic, you need to connect with people, and you need to have the skills to be able to do that. And that's basically what my books are about. In fact, the one on speaking, The Exceptional Speaker, I co-authored with Alan Stevens. He's a past president of the Global Speakers Federation, to which PSASA is affiliated. And that is important because it means that no other association in South Africa can come and claim that they're the legitimate one, because we're the ones that are registered with the Global Speakers Federation. So one of the past presidents of that, he's based in the UK, Alan. Him and myself put together The Exceptional Speaker, which is here. And this is the revamped version that we put out in 2021. And it's basically how to deliver sensational speeches.
Okay. And that's and for the people that want to purchase some of your books, where can they actually get them?
Well, I can put it in the chat, but there are 2 websites that they can go to. Probably the easiest is just to, and it's the easiest one to remember, is just to go to presentationskills.co.za. Presentationskills.co.za. Very easy to remember. We were lucky enough to be able to secure that URL in 2001, and we've turned it into a presentation skills portal. What's also quite interesting is for people that feel that they can't afford the book, if they go into the blog, they can access over 85 articles free of charge. So there's free information there. They can go and get it, and it covers all aspects of presenting. So there's something there for people that don't have any funds. There's the books, which are not particularly expensive. Both of them are in hardcover. And there's also then the options of coming on a public course for those that are not associated with a company that wants to run with a full group of people. And we also do executive coaching. And one of the things, I know that your podcast is very much focused towards entrepreneurs. One of the things that we are wanting to do, and we'd like to possibly give it a trial in Gauteng, or in Joburg, is to especially run a presentation skills course for entrepreneurs, and give us special pricing for your under 35-year-olds. So maybe we can talk about that and set up a date at some stage, and you can put it out to your people, and we'll give them the opportunity to learn presentation skills.
Definitely. That's definitely something that we can do. And I'm looking forward to it.
We can obviously get you on it as well.
That would be something that would be amazing. So I wouldn't mind on my side. But definitely it's something that we can do. All you have to do is just let me know, and I will be there,
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so just to try and divert a bit. Now, since you've mentioned you mentioned some of your milestones, right? And now without any challenges, right? You don't get to reach that milestone, those milestones, right? Meaning that for a person to actually succeed, they need to fail, they need to get in a lot of challenges, right? So
well, absolutely, yeah.
Yes. So could you tell us a bit about let's say the biggest challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Samanya. I think for me, like many people, the biggest challenges you face are actually in your own head. Because society is telling you that in order to start your own business, you need to have a degree. And in order to start your own business, you need this qualification and that qualification. picking up a book, going to the library and sitting down reading books is for free. Going online and reading good articles is for free. So you can actually, if you don't have the funds, or which is the case with probably the majority of people in our country, they are not in a position where they can go to university or even go to a technical college. You can educate yourself, which is a path that I myself chose. Now, having done that, I've been able to get to the point where I've written a few books. And when I produce those books, they are certainly not Mickey Mouse. They've been properly edited. They've been properly produced. We've got a decent graphic artist to make a nice cover for it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 350-page monster, and it's from someone who never went to university. So what I'm saying to people is, don't let that stop you. Don't let anything stop you. Don't let somebody else saying to you that you're useless or that you'll never amount to anything. In fact, I've heard of so many people told that they never amount to anything and they end up being highly successful or very rich or whatever the case may be. So you should let that make you angry so that you can prove to them, well, actually, I am going to amount to something. And, you know, one of the things you must remember, that the job of a school teacher is to teach you the syllabus. But you must understand, with a school teacher is you're being taught by somebody who really never left school. And
that's true.
You need to actually, and with respect to teachers, they're wonderful people, but they're still at school. So sometimes you need to get out there into the workplace and experience how tough it really is. Experience the rejection of applying for jobs and not getting them. And I mean, with the unemployment rate in this country, this is actually a reality. And one of the people that I think would be fabulous for you to interview is Willem Gous, because he goes out into the townships and he encourages entrepreneurs to start a business with no funding. And there's this idea in people's heads, well, I've got to have funding. Well, I never had funding when I started my business. I just started it. And yes, it was tough. And yes, I had to borrow money. And yes, I had to get a bit of a bank overdraft. And yes, I had to put my house up against security so I could get the overdraft. At least I had the presence of mind to buy my own house. But I had no mommy or daddy to give me, 10 or 15 or 20 grand to put down a deposit on the house. I had to go into overdraft to get the deposit to put down on the house in order to get going. So anything that I've been able to build up in my life, I've done through just simply step by step developing a bit of self-confidence. So what we need to get past is the voices in our head that tell us that we can't do it. For instance, if I can give you an example, I often have people coming on presentation skills training, and right at the beginning, they pull me aside and they say, Paul, I just want to let you know this. I'm really not good at all at public speaking. In fact, I hate it.
Okay.
Now I want to just take a scenario. Let's say that you have trained for the Comrades Marathon and you're standing at the starting line in Pietermaritzburg for the down run into Durban. And just before the starter's gun goes off, you borrow the starter's gun and you shoot yourself in the foot. Well, it's not much chance that you're going to progress even 100 meters. Forget about running the 90 kilometers that is the Comrades Marathon, because we psychologically shoot ourselves in the foot when we say that we're not good at something. If you're telling yourself you're not good at something, what's going to happen? You're not going to be good at it ever until you change the way you talk to yourself about it. So my contention very simply is that our biggest enemy is our mindset and what is between our ears. But it's also our biggest advantage, because if we start speaking to ourselves the right way about our capability, in other words, if I'm looking forward to my Comrades Marathon, which I was in 2013, when I stood at the starting line in Durban, actually. The only problem is when I reached 65 kilometers, it was just too hard for me. So we had a support point there at Camperdown, and I sat down on a chair and I just said, this is the furthest I've ever run in my life. It's at least an achievement. And I'm now officially bailing from Comrades. And then as I was sitting there, I heard this chanting coming up the road. So I managed to somehow lift myself off the chair that I was sitting in, and went and stood at the road and looked at a whole group of people singing and singing and running and coming slowly up. We call that a bus, a whole group of runners.
Okay.
And I looked at these people and I thought, these people, some of them are older than me, some of them are fatter than me, some of them are shorter than me. They're all going to finish comrades, and I'm going to sit here like a wuss and not finish. And I just thought to myself, no ways. And I got back on the road and I actually finished my first comrades marathon.
Okay.
Now, the
That's
point
amazing.
is, I did the training. I've done another 2 since then, but I'd done the training, but I needed that belief in my head to overcome the pain that my body was feeling to actually complete it. And I think having completed the race, I mean, I was in quite a state. Sore knee. I mean, everything hurts. There's nothing that doesn't. You've got a headache. Your throat is dry. It's actually the hottest comrades that they've had in living memory that day. It was 30 degrees. We finished comrades in. There were a record amount of people in the rehydration tent and what have you. But I finished it, and I finished it in under 11 hours, and I was quite happy. And that, in a sense, taught me a lesson that maybe not everybody can do everything that they want to do. But if you set a goal, and it's a stretch goal, and it's kind of push achievable, you will always find a way to be able to get there.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that we need to give ourselves credit that we can do a lot more. We're capable of a lot more. We're capable of getting ourselves out of more difficult situations. All human beings experience hurt. All human beings experience difficulty. It's our approach to getting through that difficulty that is important. And it really doesn't matter what race you are, what gender you are, how old you are. I've heard of, I mean, the guy that got McDonald's going, he finally got his breakthrough when he was 65.
Okay.
But then you're supposed to be retired with your feet up or in an old age home or something, but not him. He got up, got things going, and finally, I think, took retirement in his 70s after he'd got the entire McDonald's chain going. So age is not a problem. It's our attitude that is a problem. And the wonderful thing about human beings is that we can change our mindset. We don't have to live with a mindset that was put in our heads by other people without us giving permission for the stuff to be put in our heads. We can decide what goes in our heads, and we can decide how we take it forward and what we're going to make of our lives. And you must remember something very important. It's very difficult to be charitable if you have no money. It's very difficult to motivate people unless you've achieved something yourself in your own life. So I think we owe it to ourselves to make a success of our lives so that we can get to a point later on in life where we can mentor other people. And I was watching the Springboks story about winning their second Webb Ellis Trophy, the World Cup.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, the players just put their bodies on the line like you cannot believe. But the person who was most satisfied at the end was the coach.
True.
Because it's the coach that has to formulate the plan, get the guys to believe in themselves, get the guys to, I mean, have you ever, it will never happen again that an international rugby side wins the World Cup after winning the quarterfinal by 1 point, the semi-final by 1 point after being 9 points down 10 minutes before the end, and then win the final by 1 point. I mean, it's never been done before. It'll never happen again.
Never happen again.
It's those incredible moments in life that you just look at and think, well, it's absolutely incredible. And there are these kinds of records in recent times that have been broken by people with an extraordinary belief. You look at someone like Novak Djokovic. He's now got his 24th or his 25th Grand Slam. He's well above the second guy who was Nadal at 22. Despite being stopped from playing the Australian Open, which he would have probably won because at that stage he was easily the best tennis player in the world. But that incredible belief, I don't think anybody actually understands what goes into winning one Grand Slam tennis tournament. Now to win 25 of them, it's just insane.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And it's all to do with our own mental processing ability and the way we talk to ourselves. And in the end, if you go and look at yourself in the mirror, I think what we need to understand is you are what you've been given. Now, whether you're short, tall, male, female, whether you're British, Australian, Zulu,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You have been given what you've been given. Work with it, and let's not make excuses. If I look back at the time that I got going, and there was no money to put me through university and what have you, and I, in a sense, regarded myself as being previously disadvantaged, but I wasn't previously disadvantaged, because of the system that was in place at the time. I had almost invisible advantages that other country people in my country didn't have. Now things have obviously changed, and there are far more opportunities coming up. But
Yeah.
I really believe that if you have the right attitude, and if you have a never lie down attitude, that you will always find a way to get through. And if you look at the people that generally become millionaires and billionaires and start these big businesses, very often it's so seldom people from privileged backgrounds, unless they've inherited the wealth.
Yeah.
The startups that become monumentally successful are people that have really suffered in their childhood. So sometimes look at your suffering and look at the difficulty that you've experienced and transform it in your own head into a gift. And if you can transfer your suffering into a gift, because we all suffer to a greater or lesser degree.
Yeah. It's true.
Then you are empowering yourself to the position where you can attain success, whatever success means to you, whether it's money or starting a company or looking after your extended family or whatever the case may be. And it then allows you at a later stage to be able to turn around and say, right, now I've been successful. I can start mentoring other people and helping them to be successful.
Okay.
And that was, in a sense, Samanya, the spirit with which we started the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, because I certainly know that I have got far more business from my fellow speakers than I ever have from bureaus. And many of them have got a lot more business from their fellow speakers, including me, than they have from bureaus, because bureaus only really want you when you're already a celebrity. So content producers, we use our networks. And when somebody says, do you know somebody who does presentation skills? Very often they turn around and say, well, actually, yes, I know Paul. And they know that they can put me forward because they know me and they know what I can do. They know about my book. Many of them have read the book, and they've seen what happens when people go through the process. And it's like that for many of the people that I recommend.
Okay. And that is absolutely amazing, and that's actually another reason why I was saying, with the community that you guys have built, it's really, really amazing, because you can even see that there's no jealousy in it, right? It the people in the community, they work together, which is at the same time something that is rare to see, right? So it's absolutely amazing what you guys have accomplished there, right? And also you mentioned that you didn't actually you weren't that person that or let me just say you didn't go to university, right? You forged your own path, right? And this is where it has actually brought you to, right? Which is amazing, because you mentioned also that sometimes when people don't or let me just say, a lot of people, when they don't get the opportunities to go to university, to colleges and stuff like that, they think that life is over, there's no future without,
Yes. And if I can just say this,
yeah.
this is pretty important. We get this idea in our heads at school that, the ideal path is go to primary school, go to high school or secondary school, then get your tertiary education. But you don't always have the opportunity. I have plenty of friends that have gone and got their degrees in their 40s and 50s, even one got theirs in their 60s. So there's nothing to stop you from furthering your education. There are ways of doing that on a part-time basis.
Yeah.
I've heard of people getting their PhDs. You know, in the Speakers Association, we don't only have uneducated people like me. We have people with PhDs. We have a few doctors that have joined our association, not medical doctors, but doctors of whatever their discipline is.
Yeah.
So it's never too late. I've heard of people in their 80s getting a degree. You know, there was an old thing about that 60 was old. Well, 60 is the new, well, I think 60 is the new 80, really, or 80 is the new 60, whatever it is. People are managing to continue a lot longer. There's a principle out there that, okay, well, you know, you have to retire when you're 62 or 63 or 65. Well, fortunately, I'm self-employed. I don't have to retire. And the only one that retires me is the customers that don't want to do business with me anymore. You know, and I've had that periodically right through. You know, if a company has 20 delegates that they want to train on presentation skills, once we've trained the 20 delegates, well, they don't need me anymore because I've done what I'm supposed to do. So that client will fire me basically, but it's not firing me. It's just saying, thank you very much. Here's the payment. Goodbye. And I'll move on to the next customer. So the word is quite simply that where there is a will, you can continue adding value, and provided that you stay up to date with technology and trends, and that you don't get stuck into an old hole of the past, I think that one can continue to add value. And very often it is the perspective that people have from the old days, people that were schooled in the 60s and 50s, 60s and 70s, where there wasn't all this technology, where there is a deeper understanding of how those methods of teaching had their advantages and disadvantages. So interestingly, some of the people that are most in demand these days for their expertise are people in their 70s.
Okay.
So my message very simply is, it doesn't matter what age you are. Age actually brings with it the advantage of experience. And very often we want to hear from people that are older, how did they battle through when there weren't the advantages available that there are online? I mean, frankly, anyone now can start a business. It is a lot easier than when I started off. You can just pick up some kind of idea online and off you go. So as long as you've got an idea and you've made yourself tech savvy, you can start a business.
That's true. That's really true. And at the very same time, you know, there's something that has been happening in the online space, which is that a lot of people have been starting actually businesses, you know, and with them starting businesses, there's a lot of people that have that let's say, let me just put it like this, out of 10 people that start businesses, you only find that there's about 2 of them that are left, you know. There's about 2 of them that are left, you know.
That may be.
Yes.
However, what happens is, sorry for interrupting you.
No problem.
What happens is somebody might start a business and they fail. So what's happened now is that they've learned one way of how not to start a business. So then they try and start another business and then they fail. So then they find out, okay, so that's another way that I shouldn't be starting a business. Then on the third time, they fail. Then on the fourth time, they fail. Then on the fifth time, they become one of the 2 out of 10 that succeeded. But what some people don't know is that they failed 4 times before they had a success.
That's true.
So why do we give up after the first time? We've just learned another way not to do it. And this was everything that's ever been invented. You know, there's all these famous stories about Thomas Edison. Apparently, he failed to create a feasible light bulb hundreds of times before he actually got it right and got a light bulb together that could be duplicated in a profitable way and actually work properly. So the big thing with entrepreneurship is perseverance. and also realizing that business goes up and down and up and down. It's like a share on the stock exchange. You're not going to just sort of cruise into this never-ending flow of money. It's tough, and it's those tough experiences that we need to shape us and to help us to get better. And I'm a firm believer in that. I still go through ups and downs in my business. It isn't all plain sailing. It varies. We've had to adjust things. One of the things that we've done is that we've been on a mission the last 3 or 4 years to cut down on just unnecessary overheads. And one of the things that you find is that you start accumulating all kinds of subscriptions and that are useless, that you don't need, that you're paying for. And then you start getting rid of them. So one needs to be, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to be serious about money, and not, and maybe that's the subject of another talk that we can have at some stage. It's a talk that I do about being serious about money if you're an entrepreneur, and making sure that you don't take money lightly, and that you treat money seriously.
I was actually just about to get into it. I was actually about to get into it. But do you have about 10 minutes to spare?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how given your experience, right? What do you actually think are the biggest financial challenges that entrepreneurs face today?
Okay. Well, I mean, the most common one that people say that they face is lack of capital. But really, it's a question of organizing yourself, having a place that you can do your business from. In the old days, you had to have a landline. Well, you don't need a landline anymore. You can even have a second-hand computer, a second-hand cell phone, and you've got really what you need to get a business going. I'll always go back to saying to you that the biggest obstacle that we have is the obstacle between our ears, is our own brain and our own lack of motivation. So if we are prepared to persevere and do what's necessary, I mean, I remember doing things in my 40s I would never do now in my 60s. I used to run these public seminars, and the technology was different in those days. So we sent out fax campaigns, and I would spend sometimes 25,000 Rand on a fax campaign, knowing that the 25,000 that I spent on the fax campaign would bring in 60,000 Rands worth of revenue. So once we'd paid the expenses of the seminar, there'd still be a profit. But there wasn't a massive profit. The profit was probably about 25% of the entire amount of money that had come in. But in order to do that and actually commit to that, you've got to have courage. I mean, saying, okay, I'm committing to spending 25,000 on a fax campaign. Now, your advert has got to be right. Your marketing's got to be right. I mean, we discovered a very interesting thing just by me attending a seminar on advertising. And the one person said to me, what you need to do with your fax, and we never thought of this, is firstly, it must only be one page, which was what we were doing. He said, secondly, have your advert in the top 2/3 and a coupon at the bottom. So the idea was that the secretary would receive this fax on a customer service seminar. So she'd say, oh, it'll be nice for Sheila and myself to attend, and maybe Sibonyani can come with us. So the three of us can go and attend this. Let's see if the boss will okay. I mean, it's only 350 Rand per person. Now, this was 20 years ago. So they'd go with the piece of paper and say, boss, this is in 3 weeks' time. The three of us would like to attend. Is it okay? And he would just sign it off. And she would fax it back, and there we'd have 3 bookings. So it's one thing to send out a fax. The next thing is it's got to be well enough thought out. The message has got to be strong enough to attract people. So that was the thinking in those days. Now, obviously, it's completely obsolete now. In the old days, these may be days that you don't remember, but when faxes started, the fax machine, people used to say, well, do you have a fax in your company? We say, yeah, we've got one downstairs on the 3rd floor. So they'd send it through, and you'd have to go down from the 6th floor to the 3rd floor and pick up your fax. Then there was a fax on every floor. Then
Okay.
each person had their own fax in each department. And then you had your own personal fax. And then you didn't even need a fax machine anymore. They could fax it to you through your computer.
Mm,
Then the fax disappeared because other technologies came along. But
okay, voilà.
that's the way things kind of just evolve. And as they evolve, you've got to be up to date with the kind of technologies that are going to help you to promote your business.
That's true. That's true. Nowadays, it's paid advertising that seems to work a lot.
Yes. So the organization that really has got ahead on this is Google Ads. And a lot of people are finding that if they have the right Google Ads, it gives them that advantage. We've certainly found when we've looked back at our Google Ads, which we've been running for 20 years or so, that it's brought in the majority of our big contracts and the business. And we even use it for public courses, and it works.
Okay.
But then your ad has got to be right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. And now that I'm just looking at the time. But yeah. So how important is financial literacy for entrepreneurs?
Financial literacy is so enormously important that if you don't have it, you are almost guaranteed to fail. In other words, you need to understand that money is not something to be taken lightly. You need to understand money, and you need to respect money. If you would like a recommendation of a book that you can read about understanding money, there's a book called Poverty Proof by Douglas Kruger. He's a South African who lives in Jersey now. Okay. And it's an interesting story because he was a professional speaker, part of our association in South Africa before he moved with his wife over to Jersey. And at one particular stage, and I'm not really allowed to mention figures here, but he was charging a certain amount of money for his keynote speeches. So I said to him, Douglas, you're not an X type of speaker, you're a 2X kind of speaker. So now immediately double your fee. So about 6 months later, I asked him, Douglas, how's it going? What is your fee now? And he'd more than doubled it. And I said, well, are you losing business? He says, I've only lost one deal. So he was doing the same amount of business, but earning double the money just because he doubled his fee. Yeah. So he wrote this book called Poverty Proof, 50 Ways to Train Your Brain for Wealth. And the book's dedicated to me.
Okay.
So any one of your listeners that wants to understand money, let me guarantee you, buy that book, read it. It's not a long book. It's like less than 150 pages. And you will understand how money works. But you've got to read the thing. You can't just buy it and let it sit on your shelf. It's like anything. Just read it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And thank you for sharing that. So what practical tips can you actually offer entrepreneurs to manage their finances better?
All right, good question. So the first one is buy that book and read it. I think the second one would be, and this is quite a difficult one for a lot of people to get right, but you need to have two separate budgets. You need to have your business budget, and you need to have your personal budget. And you need to keep those separate. You can't just be mixing the money up all the time because you won't know if you're Arthur or Martha in the end. So you have certain business expenses that can be put through the business, certain personal expenses. You need to budget. You need to stay within your budget. And if I can give you the best piece of advice I ever heard, and it went back to the days where they had pounds and shillings and that sort of thing. So the saying was that if John earns 19 shillings and John spends 18 shillings and 5 pence, then John is a happy fellow. But if John earns 19 shillings and John spends 19 shillings and 5 pence, then John is an unhappy fellow. So it's quite simple. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, you're quickly going to get yourself into debt. And then the compound interest is going to start hitting you. Rather, from the time you start working, start putting away something, let compound interest work for you. and you'll be amazed to see that a person that puts away 100 Rand a month for 40 years is going to have more money after 40 years than a person that starts 10 years later and puts away 200 Rand a month for 30 years. They'll have less money than the person that started with 100 because of compounding.
Yeah.
So put away something into a fund that can never be touched. Make sure that you don't spend more than you're earning, and then keep your accounts separate. Have a budget for your personal and have a budget for your business, and don't go and mix the two up. So pay yourself a salary out of your business. That's for your personal expenses, and then your business expenses. You might need an overdraft for times when people pay you late. I can tell you that many more businesses have failed simply because they weren't serious enough about getting payment out of their customers. Customers went to 30, 45, 60 days, and there's no entrepreneur that can operate on an ongoing basis on 60 days. So
True.
you need to make sure that you get paid and that you get paid soon.
Okay. And that is actually valuable. That is very valuable, because and the reason I'm actually saying this, it's because just a few months ago, I had about two clients that we actually had just taken in, and one thing that I noticed was that I won't be able to say the numbers, of course, but one thing that I noticed was that um, these guys, every job they were doing, they were losing money, right? Which
Yeah.
is now a question, which is actually something that I didn't understand, right? And the more I actually asked them, I started to understand that um, even in terms of rent money, right? These guys, they actually were struggling a bit, right? And what I then found out was that they didn't have an account that was separate, that they would be putting money for the groceries, for the rent and all of those kinds of things that they, and the moment I noticed that, I then started to, and at this point that I'm speaking to you, I'm actually at a point where these two guys actually, we've spoken to a point where they actually want me to actually partner with them in their business, because of they are not good in terms of handling the finances,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. So it's something that is very important, the finances. And also, what are some common financial mistakes you see entrepreneurs making?
Okay. So here's one. So you land the deal. You land the deal on Monday. Sorry, let's call it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So now you're busy putting all the finishing touches and you're running around. And on the following Monday, 6 days later, you decide, okay, I think it's time I invoice this person. So you invoice them. So the 30-day period that most people insist on starts from the time you invoice it. So if you landed the deal on Tuesday, don't wait till the next Monday to invoice. If you land the deal on Tuesday, invoice on Tuesday, because the 30 days starts from that Tuesday. And then it means that in 30 days, you're entitled to get your money.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's very often because money comes in just after your debit order was due that you can go into default because you didn't time it properly. So the point goes back to taking money seriously and not being slapgat as it is about your finances.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the tips that I can give. There are plenty more. The other one is just to be vigilant. Nobody thinks that there's going to be fraud in their company. Nobody thinks that their employees are going to take them for a ride. I'd be surprised if there's a restaurant in South Africa that's never had shrinkage, that's never had theft of food or whatever have you. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah. True.
Supermarkets, stores, they have to factor into their pricing a certain amount of shrinkage. So let's understand, fraud is out there. Fraud is rife. People steal from you. So you need to have safeguards into place, and don't be too casual about handing out credit cards to people in your organization, because if they're short of money, it's a very tempting thing to just go and quickly slip something onto the credit card and make it look like it's something else. So even the most trustworthy people have gone down the wrong path. So don't make it easy for you to be able to be defrauded. I think those two things to me are paramount. Invoice on time. When people are late with their payment, you need to be all over them like a rash. And if there's one other thing I can mention, you don't always have to stick by this 30 days thing. There are some people that will be happy to pay you earlier. Ask them, would you be prepared to pay for it on delivery? I mean, if you go to a supermarket, you can't grab a loaf of bread and a carton of milk and say, listen, I've got money right now. I'll come back in 2 weeks' time and pay you. They'll say, well, you can put the goods back, actually. So this 30 days is, you know, it's quite a it's quite a little privilege you're giving to your customers to actually allow them to pay you 30 days, and they should understand that. I've heard of customers coming along and saying, well, I want an early settlement discount for 30 days. An early settlement discount for 30 days. That's not early, that's late. You know, you can have an early settlement discount if you pay me 2 weeks in advance. You know, even if you pay me on the day, you're not getting an early settlement discount.
Yeah.
So we need to be serious about our money and the value that we're offering. And we need to also understand what our margins are in the business. And if you're running a business with a 5% margin and you're then being asked to give discounts, well, what's going to happen? You're going to end up losing money, and you can't operate like that.
Okay, that's true. And so basically, just to wrap up the podcast, I'm just looking at the time. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are still starting out?
Okay, very simple. If you can get some capital funding, that's great. If you can't, don't let that stop you. Start educating yourself about how you can start a business without capital. This is something that I mentioned that Willem Gous is an expert on. So maybe get him onto your podcast and ask him specifically about that, about what are the methodologies that he recommends. And he has got dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of entrepreneurs going without a lot of capital. And I think most importantly, you need to have a solid idea. You then need to believe in yourself. You need to back yourself. And if you ever go into partnership with somebody, have a contract, because most partnerships end in tears. Okay. So I think those are the best pieces of advice I can give.
Okay. And also in regards to Willem, I actually spoke to him, and we actually going to be having an intro call in the next few days, surely.
Fantastic. Well, you're going to get a lot of value out of that, because he is the maestro when it comes to helping young entrepreneurs getting going.
Okay. And thank you for actually showing me the to Willem. Thank you very much for that. And okay, and also are there any books, tools or resources that you can recommend for entrepreneurs looking to improve their financial management skills?
I think the book that I recommended, Poverty Proof by Douglas Kruger, 50 Ways to Train Your Brain for Wealth. I think that if they go out and get that one book, that will stand them in good stead. There are many other fantastic books out there, but I think from a financial point of view, get hold of that, understand the money, and you'll go a long way in understanding how to keep yourself safe from bankruptcy.
Okay, no problem. And then also, where can our listeners find more about your work and also your books?
Okay, so you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's one of the ways we found one another. Also, our website, presentationskills.coza. And if you go to YouTube, I have about 200 videos posted there, many of them on speaking, some of them on customer service, some of them on video conferencing skills, some of them on quirky presentation skills. So my YouTube channel is Paul Du Toit 1 or Paul Du Toit 1. So it's PAULDUTOIT 1 is my tag for my YouTube channel. And you'll find that everything's arranged in playlists, and you can just help yourself. And why not subscribe? Because every time I put up something new, and I'm doing some smart speak sessions with Willem at the moment, those are now busy being posted up on the website. At least on YouTube.
Okay. No problem. And I will also actually subscribe to it as soon as we get off this. And I will be leaving the links also down below, right? So that they can
Fabulous.
be able to get to them a bit quicker, right? And so is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think the last thing is that if you're feeling a bit despondent and you're feeling that things are tough and difficult, remember that even when we're at our lowest depths, that tomorrow is another day. Get a good night's sleep, get up the next day, reset your mind, and go out there and do what you know that you're capable of, because you are all that you have. So you need to rely on yourself to get those results. So believe in yourself and don't give up. Just treat the difficult experiences as part of your learning curve towards getting to your ultimate goal.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much, Paul, for joining me on today's podcast. Um, I am interested though in having another interview with you where we will be diving deep into into the financial literacy side of you know of how entrepreneurs can make sure that they get their money right. So I'm interested in getting you on another podcast interview, but we'll just have to discuss it. Maybe when would that be possible?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much, Paul. And guys, as you have heard, everything that we've spoken about with Paul, I hope you guys were taking notes and you will implement everything that we've shared on this podcast. Yeah, guys, thank you very much for listening to the podcast.